Hi everyone, I'm Jane, and today we are going to paint this little landscape. Now the focus of this landscape is on the underpainting. I did a bright yellow underpainting that I let show through quite a bit of the layers so the underpainting could help with dimension and texture so we didn't have to work quite so hard for it. Before we get started, make sure you check out the video description below for a full list of materials and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already so that you can paint with me all month long. Now let's get started. All right, once again, I don't have a solid idea of what I want to do. I have a general idea, and so we're just going to roll with that. And I'm going to try and do this one really quickly. And my idea is to paint a vibrant underpainting and really let that underpainting work for us to help create the painting so we can do it really quickly. Now for a vibrant underpainting, I'm going to take some yellow oxide and some yellow ochre, because when I mix those two colors together, I get this really gorgeous, bright color. And a bit of matte medium. Now, like I said, I want to do this underpainting very quickly, so I'm going to use a paper towel. I really liked using a paper towel in that last video we did. And I don't want to spend a lot of time working on this underpainting. So I just picked up a bit of both of those colors, and I'm just going to scrub them on. Pay no attention to that black line. A wet painting touched this little canvas. I just picked up a bit of matte medium because that's going to help me spread that paint around. Don't scrub at this too much because as the paint is drying, it's going to start getting sticky and then you'll start lifting paint off. Just scrub it on there really quick. There we go, done. While we have that wet, I'm going to take my number 8 Bright, pick up some matte medium. I'm just going to sketch out where I want all of the elements on my paintings, and I'm going to pick up yellow oxide because it's going to be just a little bit different than the underpainting. I'll be able to see it. I kind of have an idea to have a hill, something that's coming up fairly far, we'll say just below the center line. I'm just going to take it across. It doesn't have to be real straight. And I want a bunch of trees in the background here. So I'm just kind of scrubbing in the general shape. These are going to be, I think they're going to be kind of like evergreen trees. But we'll see. Since I don't have a fully formed idea, I can mess with this and make adjustments as I see fit. I think that'll be pretty good for some trees. I have the idea for either the roof of a barn or a little old house just peeking out from behind this hill. Let me redefine where my hill is here. Right there. Got this idea off of an image on graphic stock, but I'm changing it up. So I'm just going to kind of carve out the roof here. Just make sure it's pretty much symmetrical. And we'll make sure that it's got at least one window right here. Maybe 2. Just kind of scraping upward to scrape off some of that paint. I think we'll call that good for now. Let's see where it goes from there. I'm going to get some ultramarine and start making some grass here. Not a lot. And remember, because of the warm bias in the ultramarine, it's got a red bias. When we mix it with the yellow, which both of these yellows also have a warm bias, we're not going to get a bright, vibrant green. We're going to get kind of a drab, washed out green. And that's what I typically like for landscapes. I don't like my green to be overly vibrant. Let's throw a little yellow oxide in there and see what happens. I remember from the color chart that the yellow oxide and the burnt umber really made a super grayed out green, and I'm kind of liking that. So that's a mixture of all 3 of these colors. I wiped off quite a bit of this, and I'm going to start down here and just kind of start scooting it back and forth. So my brush is flat and just kind of scraping it. The quicker I work, the less opportunity I give myself to focus on little details. And I'm going to start tapering that green out. Just scratch a tiny bit of what's left on my brush up in here. I think we're going to call that good for now. And while we're still working with that green, let's darken it a little bit. Tiny bit of matte medium. And let's start filling in our trees back here. So again, I'm using my brush kind of flat, and I'm just kind of scrubbing it up. It's not totally flat. And you can even turn it on the corner to kind of change the shape a little bit. Get right down to where that hill meets it. Don't worry about going into your hill. We haven't finished it. Oh, a little darker with the blue in there. I like that. And that underpainting is still a little bit wet, and so it's picking up a bit in there, and I kind of like that. Avoiding my house, but not being too terribly obsessive about it. I'll cut a little line and then just keep going. Let's throw a little more blue in there. I liked when I got that unexpected darker color in there. I think that's good for now. Notice I let quite a bit of that underpainting show through. Let's get a little bit of unbleached titanium, and we'll do a little spot of titanium. Bit of matte medium, and I'm going to mix them together very loosely, so they're still kind of marbled on my brush. I don't need a perfect mix. And let's come in here to our house, leave a spot for your roof, and drag that straight down. I'm not worried about the windows right now. Painted them out, but I can put them right back in. A little more unbleached. Not worried about the hill right now. I'm going to throw just a tiny speck of Ultramarine Blue in there so I get a nice cool shadow color. The ultramarine and the unbleached titanium really create kind of a grayed out color that I like a lot. And the shadow color is usually a little bit lighter, or a little bit cooler, sorry. I'm gonna mix a hint of yellow in with some white. I didn't clean off my brush because I'm a total mess, and I'm okay with that. And we'll create a highlight side over here. It's just a little bit warmer. You probably can't even tell a difference, but that's okay. Just a hint of warmth in there is gonna help it look like it's in direct light. I think I wanna keep that kind of grayed out feeling in the sky. So I'm gonna use ultramarine and unbleached titanium for the sky. So let's start by mixing them about 50-50 and see what happens.
Let's go a little bit more on the unbleached side. There we go. And we'll just kind of start slashing this in there. Make sure you let some of that underpainting show, especially around the edges of your trees. It's gonna be so interesting. And one of the things I kind of want with this painting is to make it feel like this is maybe very early autumn. Maybe these aren't evergreens, maybe they're poplars. And they're getting ready to turn yellow. And the little bit of yellow poking out is kind of helping to give that impression, but it's also giving that autumn sky feel. So notice I was very generous in how much of that I let show around the edge of the trees. You know, was it last fall when we did the palette knife birch trees? Kind of did something similar where I painted the background a bright, bright yellow. And then we did the trees and we left some yellow poking out around the trees. And I had a lot of people saying that they didn't understand the yellow. Well, this is kind of the same idea. So letting your underpainting show is a really interesting way to create some variation and texture and dimension in your painting. And I feel like when you do something like that, the trees don't look like such a cutout just plopped on top of the sky. It helps give everything a more integrated look. So that's why I'm really enjoying doing that. And I think I'll take just a little bit of regular titanium and just brighten up a couple parts in this, because I feel like that was maybe just a little bit too gray. A little bit of ultramarine there. Let's get rid of those color streaks. Just setting it back in there. I'm gonna let some of the white exist like that. It'll help us insinuate some clouds. Just picking up different variations of white, the titanium white, not the unbleached, and the ultramarine. Just getting a little bit of interest going on in the sky here. Maybe I want this side to be quite blue. The underpainting that you choose is really up to you. You know, if you wanted to give this more of a kind of a funky, vibrant feel, you could do like a magenta underpainting here and do the exact same thing. It would just give you a different feeling. Magenta might feel a little bit more like spring, where this bold yellow feels a little bit more like early fall to me. Now let's work on our grass here a little bit more. So some more of my yellows, some more ultramarine. That's a little bit more vibrant than before. We'll go with that and see what happens. Little matte medium. And I think I kind of pulled a bit of the cadmium yellow right there. You can't really see because it's kind of slid under the green, but it's there individually. And so we'll see that as we start streaking. So I'm not gonna use my brush flat. I'm gonna kind of turn it on its edge and just start kind of slashing it through there. And again, picked up some of the yellow all by itself on the edge, and it's just helping to create a bit more variation. As my brush is running out of paint, did you see what I did there? So I'm using it like that, and as it ran out of paint, I turned it about like that so that I was on the other side. Because I have paint loaded up on both sides of my brush, so I might as well use it. Little slash of yellow again. My brush is starting to get pretty gunked up. That's okay. I like those little streaks of different colors. It's helping build dimension with very little effort. And as I get up here again, I'm picking up more yellow. I've still got the green on there. And notice how much of my underpainting is still showing through. I'm just gonna pick up both of my yellows. Kind of sharpen the edge of my hill a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfectly sharp. And I think before I finish the hill, I have a couple ideas of how I want to finish this hill. I'm going to go back and finish my trees because I don't feel like my trees are done. I'm going to go to my number 6 round, pick up some medium, not a ton of medium, just some. And let's mix up a nice dark green. So I just pulled a little bit of my cadmium yellow into the blue, super dark green. It's really on the blue side. It's a very blue green. And we'll come in here. We'll use the point of the brush to our advantage and have that help us make some kind of little spiky bits in our trees. Still just kind of randomly scrubbing. Think of these as some closer trees, so it doesn't need to go all the way up to the top there. I want you to be super loose with this. You know, don't micromanage anything. If a color doesn't turn out the way you want it, it doesn't matter. Don't try and do the exact same colors that I'm doing. You know, maybe the colors you're doing are exactly the same as mine, but you know, the way my camera picks up the color, the way your screen that you're looking at translates and interprets the colors, it could make it be completely different. So just focus on doing it the way you need to do it. Don't focus on trying to get it exactly the colors that I'm getting. Let's mix up a color very similar to these background trees, but I'm going to take a poke of unbleached titanium, maybe one more, and create kind of this dim grayed out color. Remember, as things get away from us, as they move away from us, they become desaturated. So this is kind of grayed out, a little desaturated. I'm just going to go in there and kind of scribble it in there, making sure to leave my underpainting color showing. So I'm not being real specific. A lot of that first color is still there. But we're just adding a hint of this more grayed out green on top of it. If one of your darker trees got too tall, just take that over top of it, and now it's not. You can brighten it up a little bit more. Just grab some more of my yellows, go back into my blue. A little bit of a brighter color. And we can add just a few little highlights in here, just kind of scrubbing them on. I'm going to take a tiny bit, just an eensy-weensy little bit of Alizarin Crimson and an eensy-weensy bit of burnt umber. And we're going to do the roof real quick. So my number 8 bright is cleaned off and dried on a paper towel. I'm going to mix these two together. A little heavier on the Alizarin Crimson side so I can keep some of that red warmth. I want this to appear to have a bit of a red roof. Scrape some of that up on the tip and just kind of cut it down the edge here. Again, I'm leaving some of my underpainting showing. Don't take it down over your hill. Remember, We're down a hill looking up, and we can just see the roof of this little house, just barely. Let's grab, we're gonna experiment here. I wanna make it gray, but I'm being lazy and I don't wanna get black out. So I'm gonna mix burnt umber, alizarin, ultramarine, and unbleached. That's a little on the red side. So we'll throw just a speck of ultramarine in there. See if we can gray this down a bit. A little bit of burnt umber, more unbleached. There we go. That's pretty good. Wipe off quite a bit of that. I'm actually gonna go to my number 6 bright. Just much smaller, it'll be a little easier to control. Have my color, it's very, very thin. I'm gonna come up here to the house and just streak to the side. And maybe there's another one right here. Little windows. I can grab more of my brown alizarin mix. I didn't clean off my brush. Come right up here to the edge of the window and I'm just gonna touch. Just touch. Let's get just a couple more shadows in our trees, some super dark shadows. So I'm gonna grab yellow and ultramarine, mix up a green, and then to darken it, remember we add the color on the opposite side of our color wheel. So if I have green, to darken it, drive it closer toward the black, I'm gonna add a little bit of red. And the red that I have on my palette is Alizarin Crimson. So a little speck of that. A little bit more. There we go. Just scatter some of this at the bottom there. Maybe inside a little bit. Don't worry if you get a hard line like that. Do you remember in the last video where I showed you how to overlap values to bridge gaps between light and dark? So rather than saying, here's dark, here's lighter again, and end up with stacked layers or stacked values, how instead we said, here's dark, here's our lightest value, and add the middle value on top where those two meet. So we can kind of do that here too. If you didn't see that part, you can click the little information iCard up here and find that video so that you can see what I'm talking about there. So see, because that dark color is just plopped on top of these other values, it almost looks like this might be a separate set of trees that's just darker and in front, but I don't want it to look like that. So I'm gonna add a little bit more yellow, get a brighter value. Not very much paint, I'm kind of wiping quite a bit of that off. And I'm just gonna kind of touch over top of it. That might be just a little too light. There we go. I'm using super light pressure just wherever I feel like the transition between the two colors is too hard. See? And that pushes that down. So now it's a shadow deep within these trees, not a darker tree pressed up against it. I hope that makes sense. And I feel like I'm almost done here. So let's get some unbleached titanium and mix it in with our cad yellow. It tones it down a little bit, but it still keeps it a really pretty bright color. Mix a bit of matte medium in there. Maybe just a speck of titanium white. There we go. And back here, particularly on this side moving toward the house, I'm gonna use my brush flat, kind of like we did in the water on the Misty Mountain video, and just drag across. And that's helping keep some of that texture, show the colors underneath. And to me, it kind of feels like it's insinuating that maybe there are some little flowers growing on this hillside. Just scoot it along. I might pick up just a hint more of that and just clean up the edge of this hill. There we go. A little bit lighter. And maybe we can add just a hint of it over on this side. Let's go a little bit more yellow as it gets closer to us. Super light pressure though. If you put too much pressure here, you're gonna obliterate all of this, and we don't want to. We want to still see that that bit of green is down there. I'm just adding a little more yellow as I work forward. Barely touching the canvas. Let's go just a hint greener right there in that foreground corner. One more thing I want to do in the grass here, and then we're going to finish our house, and I think we're done. So I'm down to my number 6 bright, just picking up the cad yellow, pretty heavy. So you have quite a bit of paint on there. I'm just going to come in here and just kind of touch with the corner in a few spots. Just kind of give the impression that maybe there's some little flowers in here. Can scoot them across up through here. I turn my brush flat, and I'm kind of like tapping as I slide my hand back and forth. So it's like tap, but it's a slide too, with the lightest pressure you can. If you use too much pressure here, you're gonna deposit quite a bit of paint. And I just want to give the impression that there's some little yellow flowers growing on this hill. I'm also starting to get a little bit of detailitis, so I need to stop. Like I just said, I need to stop. It's time to stop. Okay, stop. Except I'm gonna grab a little bit of my yellow oxide, and just in these closer flowers, just add a bit. Okay, let's finish our house and we're done. A little bit of ultramarine, a little bit of unbleached. Get a super pale blue with the two. Super pale, but still obviously blue. We'll come here under the eave, clean up that piece of roof, and just lightly drag that down. Just very lightly. Wipe that off on my plate. A little bit of just unbleached. And just drag over top of that to tone it down a little bit. But there's our nice shadow color. Let's do that similar thing we talked about before with a little bit of the yellow, a little bit of the unbleached. Well, let's throw a little more white in there. Kind of the same thing down this side. You don't want this to be obviously yellow. You just want it to be a much warmer color than the other side. Just help say that that part's in highlight, the rest of it's in shadow. A little bit of unbleached to take care of any parts that got away from you a bit. I had a little too much there, so I just tapped it off with my finger. Teeny tiny speck of white. And I think I'm done. The only thing I see is I feel like I still want it a little darker under this eave. So I'm gonna mix some ultramarine with some burnt umber because I get a nice dark gray color. They're almost black. And a little hint of unbleached, nice cool dark color. There we go. I'm gonna wipe off most of that from my brush. Right under the eave, just drag it straight down. Concentrate it. If it's gonna be full and heavy anywhere, it's gonna be directly under the eave. A little speck of unbleached. And the lightest pressure possible, just dust it so it doesn't have a hard edge. All right, I'm gonna call that done and I'm gonna sign it.
And there's your fast and simple early autumn landscape painting. I hope that this gets you thinking a little bit more about underpainting and how that underpainting can be used not only to bring a cohesive feel to all of the colors that you put on top of it, but that the underpainting itself can be left to show quite a bit to add to the overall effect of the painting. Throughout the month, we will be focusing on underpainting quite a few more times, and we're probably gonna get even crazier than our bright yellow underpainting. Don't forget to find me on Facebook or Instagram so that you can share your version of these paintings as well as your own personal paintings with me. Just search for Painting with Jane. If you've missed any videos in our 30 Days of Art Challenge, you can check out the full playlist right here. Thank you as always for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.